Hey guys, it's me, the Bombay Chef Varun Inamdar, and welcome to Rajshri Food. Well, today's recipe is from the land of Russia, which is dedicated to a Russian noble, of course. Across the globe, there are various versions of this recipe, the most prominent one being with mushrooms. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about stroganoff as a sauce, and the recipe for the day is mushroom stroganoff. Let's begin. Moreover, especially in places like Brazil and New York, because over the 1980s, this possibly became one of the most famous recipes that started getting served not only in restaurants but also in homes. Let's begin the recipe with a little touch of oil because you do not want the butter to get burnt. And that brings us to the next important ingredient, salted butter. It's a very rich recipe which is soft, it's brown, it also has sour cream, so it has that wonderful tenderness to the whole sauce, and that will of course come with sour cream. Now of course we are not going to use sour cream in this recipe, but I'm going to show you how to acidulate your cream at home. Sounds quite technical, but don't worry, we'll come to it. Allow the butter to start melting, and while that's happening, let's quickly slice a red onion. This recipe classically has a lot of ingredients. It has red onions, it has some garlic, it has Worcester sauce, it has flour, it has sour cream, and the list just goes on and on and on and on and on. But what I'm doing is I'm making it very typically home style with mustard powder and things like that. You'll of course realize it. What I'm going to do is make it in a certain way that I've been making it over the years because I think I find it easier that way. Also, the ingredients are all available in your kitchen pantry, so you do not have to go all out looking for them. Let's push the red onions, which are now sliced, into the pan. We want this to beautifully caramelize because that's where the color of this dish would come from, which is that light brown in the cream. Caramelization of onions, especially in this recipe, are extremely important because that's where you get that beautiful light brown tone to the acidulated cream, which eventually becomes the signature color of this recipe. Stroganoff, remember? A lot of people also confuse this recipe with a goulash, but a goulash is very different. Goulash is a stew, stroganoff is a sauce. So I think for beginners, this is quite a distinct differentiation, and I think you should stick with it rather than getting confused. Allow the onions to turn golden brown in color. Let's move on to the next core ingredient, and they are mushrooms. Now in this case, I'm using a combination of button mushrooms and Portobello mushrooms because these are available where I live. You can by all means go all out and use the different kinds of mushrooms, bring in your oysters and shimijis and things like that, and go all out and wild. Let's cut these. When I say cut, I just mean thick slices. Also, you want the mushrooms to retain that bite even after they get sauteed and cooked because you do not want them to kind of get disintegrated in the cream or the sauce. So good thick cuts of mushrooms. Once the onions get caramelized, the next step is to also throw in the mushrooms and ensure that they also get that wonderful caramelized bottom, and then we kind of flip it or toss it. And we can go all out and just bring in that wonderful caramelized color. The mushrooms are cut and ready. Let's transfer all of this in the caramelized onions. Need to stir this on high flame because on low flame the mushrooms will start releasing its internal moisture, and you do not want to sauce it up at this stage at least. No salt, nothing, because you do not want to draw out the moisture at any stage. Just ensure these are spread like so, and they take the entire surface of the pan or the wok. This entire mixture has beautifully caramelized. It's got that tinge of brown, which is of course required for this recipe. And if you see, it has also taken the color right here. Now all this color, the moment you add in the cream and water, is all going to get drawn back to the bottom. And that's where the color of the stroganoff becomes what it should be. Let's stir this well. At this stage, I'm going to add in mustard, and in this case, mustard powder. Now, because this is mustard, of course, in its powdered form, it's going to be extremely strong. So just a little bit of mustard powder. In case you have your Dijon mustards and your English mustards and your mustard paste and things like that, go all out and put that to use. I'm adding in a touch of soy sauce, Well, this in a lot of ways is not required in this recipe. Traditionally, you're supposed to add in Worcester sauce. Now, because we may not have Worcester sauce in our homes because it's not one of those regularly used ingredients, I'm adding in soy sauce because soy sauce is generally available. This will also help in bringing that wonderful color to the sauce. The next ingredient is what's going to define the entire base and the silken nature of this recipe, and that is cream. Now, this is dairy cream, it's fresh cream. Traditionally, we're supposed to use sour cream and a touch of Greek yogurt. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to acidulate this cream. I'm going to add in an acid, in this case, lemon juice. We stir this well, and this is how you can make your acidulated cream at home. Let's add this into the mushrooms. Well, in case you have sour cream, by all means, please go ahead and use that. And also, maybe like a tablespoon of Greek yogurt. We start stirring this, and while stirring, we also need to ensure that we start scraping the sides and the bottom of the pan. That's where all the flavor is. Once this is mixed well, we're going to add in water, and this is purely to kind of adjust the consistency and bring in that balance in the sauce. Let's go easy with the salt, because acidulated cream may also feel salty. I say feel salty because it's going to be kind of sour, and sometimes while we eat, we kind of forget the difference between sour and salty. So go easy with the salt, especially in this recipe. Stir this well. And lastly, freshly cracked black pepper. The moment you add in water, you'll also realize that the sides where the mushrooms and onions were kind of bringing in that color will start releasing naturally. And that's the whole idea of a beautiful stroganoff. Freshly cracked black pepper. The color of this stroganoff literally needs to be like a cappuccino in a cup with that dusting of cocoa powder on top. A quick stir. Allow this to boil for precisely 30 to 40 seconds. And with this, your stroganoff sauce is done and ready. Well, ideally in this recipe, when you're sauteing the mushrooms, you could also add in like a half a teaspoon of refined flour or whole wheat flour. Saute that so that this eventually also thickens up. I do not like it because I like to keep it gluten-free in a lot of ways. So I like it like that, but if you like the sauce thicker, of course. A roux or a beurre mani is your way forward. Now when I say roux, I mean the sauteing of the flour, and by beurre mani, I mean at this stage, you make a ball of butter and refined flour and just throw in 1 or 2 balls here and there. That disintegrates in the sauce and brings it that wonderful thickness. With this, mushroom stroganoff is done and ready. And this goes amazingly well with a bowl of steamed rice. And of course, if you can add some parsley to it, there's nothing better than that. Finally, I'm going to top this up with some finely chopped parsley. Well, in this case, if you want to take this to another level, you can garnish this with some cocktail onions. You can throw in some gherkins, some sliced cornichons, and just personalize it. And here you have mushroom stroganoff with parsley rice done and ready. Make this for your family, make this for your friends. Go all out and impress them. Bye for now.